Few franchises in entertainment history have had the impact of Star Wars. Since its debut in 1977, Star Wars hasn't just been a series of films. It's been a cultural phenomenon. It redefined science fiction, pioneered blockbuster filmmaking, and created one of the most passionate fan bases in the world. But with that passion comes scrutiny. Star Wars has seen incredible highs and devastating lows. From the groundbreaking original trilogy to the controversial prequels to Disney's sequel trilogy that divided fans more than anything before. The journey of Star Wars is one of triumph, failure, reinvention, and survival. In this video, we're going to look at the rise of Star Wars, its struggles, the Disney acquisition, the sequel trilogy's fallout, and what the future looks like now with Disney at the helm. Star Wars isn't just a franchise. It's a mirror of fandom, filmmaking, and pop culture itself. When George Lucas released Star Wars: A New Hope in 1977, he didn't just release a movie, he unleashed a cultural revolution. At the time, the movie industry was in a strange place. The late 60s and early 70s were defined by gritty, cynical films like The Godfather, Taxi Driver, and A Clockwork Orange. Science fiction on the big screen was often bleak, cerebral, or campy, with films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, or low-budget B-movies that leaned into cheesy visuals. Lucas wanted to do something different. Inspired by Flash Gordon serials, Akira Kurosawa's samurai films, and Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, he set out to create a modern myth, a fairy tale set in space. His idea was dismissed by many studios as too risky and too weird. Even 20th Century Fox didn't believe in it. The budget was tight, the production was chaotic, and Lucas often clashed with crew members over his vision. But despite everything working against it, Star Wars changed the world. A New Hope introduced us to Luke Skywalker, the farm boy who longs for adventure, Princess Leia, the fearless leader of a rebellion, Han Solo, the scoundrel with a heart of gold, and of course, Darth Vader, one of the, if not the most iconic villains in film history. It was simple, but timeless. Good versus evil, light versus dark. The hero's journey told with lasers, spaceships, and mysticism. There was the technology. Industrial Light and Magic, or ILM, founded by Lucas himself, pioneered visual effects techniques still used today. Miniature models, motion-controlled cameras, and groundbreaking sound design made the galaxy far, far away feel very real. Even the sound of a lightsaber, created by combining a TV hum with a projector noise, became instantly iconic. There was the reception. Critics were stunned. Audiences lined up around the block. Star Wars became the highest-grossing film of all time, earning $775 million worldwide, which is over $3 billion in today's dollars. More importantly, it created the modern blockbuster model. Summer releases, merchandising, and cinematic universes all trace back to Star Wars. But Lucas didn't stop there. The success of A New Hope opened the door to sequels, and Lucas took full advantage. The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner. This sequel took a darker, more mature turn. The heroes lost. Han was frozen in carbonite. Luke discovered Vader was his father, a twist so shocking it became one of the most famous reveals in film history. At the time, it received mixed reviews for being darker and unresolved, but today it's widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made. Then there was Return of the Jedi in 1983. The trilogy concluded with redemption. Vader sacrificed himself to save Luke, overthrowing the Emperor and one of cinema's most iconic endings. While some fans criticized the Ewoks as overly cute and marketable, the emotional conclusion cemented Star Wars as a generational saga. And then there was the merchandising. George Lucas famously negotiated to keep merchandising rights when he made the original film, something Fox executives thought was worthless. That deal turned Lucas into a billionaire. By the mid-1980s, Star Wars toys were everywhere. Kids recreated lightsaber duels in their backyards, and every household seemed to have an R2-D2 or X-Wing figure. It wasn't just a movie anymore. It was part of everyday culture. The original trilogy didn't just influence movies. It created the blueprint for modern Hollywood. Before Star Wars, sequels were rare and risky. After Star Wars, franchises became the gold standard. Before Star Wars, toys based on movies were an afterthought. After Star Wars, they became billion-dollar industries. And the legacy of these films has never gone away. From the moment Luke stared at the twin suns of Tatooine, audiences knew that they were seeing something bigger than just a movie. They were seeing a legend being made. The original trilogy remains sacred ground. Every Star Wars project that followed, from the prequels to the Disney sequels, has been judged against it, because those three films weren't just successful, they were transformative. They proved that cinema could create worlds, heroes, and stories that would last for generations. After nearly 2 decades, George Lucas returned to the galaxy far, far away. Fans had spent years begging for more Star Wars, and in 1999, they finally got it. The prequel trilogy promised to answer questions the original films had left open. Who was Anakin Skywalker before he became Darth Vader? How did the Jedi fall? And how did the Republic transform into the Empire? The hype was unlike anything cinema had ever seen. Midnight releases, lines around the block, people camping out for days, toys, posters, fast food tie-ins. Star Wars was back. But what fans got was complicated. The Phantom Menace, 1999. The Phantom Menace was one of the most anticipated films of all time. The teaser trailer became an event in itself. People bought tickets to unrelated movies just to see it. When the film released, theaters were packed with fans wearing costumes, wielding toy lightsabers, and brimming with excitement. Set decades before A New Hope, the film introduced us to young Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. It showed a republic at its peak, with the Jedi as peacekeepers across the galaxy. The Duel of Fates lightsaber fight with Darth Maul remains one of the greatest duels in Star Wars history. Pod racing gave audiences a thrilling, adrenaline-fueled sequence unlike anything seen before, even though at the time it wasn't well received. But many fans were disappointed. The film leaned heavily into galactic politics, trade federations, Senate debates, and blockades, which felt tedious compared to the mythic tone of the originals. Jar Jar Binks became infamous, criticized as annoying and even racially insensitive. And some felt young Anakin was miscast, with Jake Lloyd facing brutal backlash that hurt his career and personal life. Despite the criticism, The Phantom Menace was a financial juggernaut, grossing over $1 billion worldwide. Kids loved it. Older fans, not so much. Attack of the Clones, 2002. Lucas doubled down on world building. We saw more of the galaxy, more Jedi, and the beginnings of the Clone Wars. The iconic moments. The arena battle on Geonosis, with dozens of Jedi fighting side by side. Yoda drawing a lightsaber for the first time to duel Count Dooku, a moment that brought theaters to life with cheers. The criticism. Dialogue became a major issue. The romance between Anakin and Padme was wooden and awkward, with infamous lines like, "I don't like sand." Hayden Christensen's performance was divisive. Some blamed him, others blamed Lucas's writing and direction. Despite flaws, the film expanded Star Wars lore significantly. The introduction of Kamino, the Clone Army, and deeper exploration of the Jedi Order laid the groundwork for the galaxy's fall. And for younger fans, the spectacle outweighed the awkward writing. Revenge of the Sith, 2005. Widely considered the strongest of the prequels, Revenge of the Sith finally delivered what fans had waited for: Anakin's tragic fall into Darth Vader. The Clone Wars reached their climax. Palpatine revealed himself as Darth Sidious. The Jedi were betrayed through Order 66, a haunting sequence that showed beloved Jedi being cut down across the galaxy. The iconic moments. Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel on Mustafar, a fiery, operatic battle that symbolized the collapse of their brotherhood. The heartbreaking moment of Padme's death and Vader's transformation. Fans were far more positive. The film had real emotional weight and tied directly to the original trilogy. For many, it redeemed the prequels, proving Lucas could still deliver a grand finale. At the time, the prequels were divisive. Older fans who grew up with the originals often hated them, criticizing the wooden acting, CGI-heavy visuals, and overcomplicated plots. Critics were similarly harsh, especially on Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. But here's the twist. Over time, the prequels gained a second life. There was the meme era, lines that were mocked. "Do it." "Hello there. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground," became beloved memes. The Clone Wars from 2008 to 2020. The animated series fleshed out the era, making characters like Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka richer and more complex. It recontextualized the films and redeemed many of their flaws. And then there was the generational shift. Kids who grew up with the prequels became adults. And for them, these films were their Star Wars. Nostalgia softened criticism, and many now rank the prequels higher than the sequels. The prequels were ambitious, messy, and flawed, but they were bold. Lucas used them to expand the mythology, showing the rise and fall of a galactic republic, the corruption of institutions, and the tragedy of a hero who became a villain. In many ways, the prequels embody Star Wars itself: imperfect, controversial, but unforgettable. In October 2012, George Lucas shocked the world when he sold Lucasfilms to Disney for $4.5 billion. The deal included not only the rights to Star Wars, but also Indiana Jones and Lucasfilm's cutting-edge technology, including ILM and Skywalker Sound. Disney immediately announced a new trilogy of films, Episodes 7, 8, and 9, along with spin-offs. Fans were excited, but anxious. For the first time, Star Wars would be made without Lucas in charge. Would Disney honor the saga's legacy, or would it become another corporate cash grab? The Force Awakens, 2015. The build-up to The Force Awakens was electric. Disney's marketing was everywhere. Trailers, toys, commercials, even Star Wars branded oranges at the grocery store. The promise was clear. Star Wars was back. Directed by J.J. Abrams, the film introduced new heroes. Rey, a scavenger with mysterious origins. Finn, a stormtrooper who defected from the First Order. And Poe, a hotshot pilot. The villain, Kylo Ren, was a conflicted dark-side user, obsessed with Darth Vader. The reception. Fans loved seeing practical effects return, like BB-8, real sets, and costumes that evoked the original trilogy. The nostalgia was strong, with callbacks like Han and Chewie reuniting, the Millennium Falcon soaring again, and Luke Skywalker teased at the end. the criticism. But many noticed it borrowed heavily from A New Hope. A desert scavenger, a droid with secret plans, a superweapon that could destroy planets. Beat for beat, it felt like a remake. Some forgave it as a reset button after the prequels, while others saw it as creatively lazy. The success. Well, it worked. The film made over $2 billion worldwide, becoming the third highest grossing movie ever at the time. It reignited global Star Wars mania. Rogue One, 2016. The concept. Disney's first anthology film, set just before A New Hope. It told the story of how the rebels stole the Death Star plans. The tone. Darker and grittier, showing the war side of Star Wars. Characters like Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor weren't spotless heroes. They were spies, killers, and rebels fighting in the shadows. The highlights. The terrifying Darth Vader hallway scene, which instantly became legendary. The realistic war film atmosphere that made Star Wars feel grounded again. The legacy. Rogue One was a hit, grossing over $1 billion. Many fans consider it one of the best Disney-era films, proving standalone stories could work. The Last Jedi, 2017. The anticipation. After Force Awakens left fans with mysteries. Who are Rey's parents? Who is Snoke? Will Luke train Rey? Excitement was sky high. The reality. Rian Johnson took the story in shocking directions. Luke Skywalker was bitter, disillusioned, and living in exile. Rey's parents were revealed as nobodies. Snoke, built up as the new emperor figure, was killed suddenly. The reception. This film divided the fandom like never before. Supporters praised it for subverting expectations and challenging the mythology. It asked if the Jedi should even exist. It forced heroes to deal with failure. Critics argued it betrayed the spirit of Star Wars, especially in how it handled Luke. Some felt the humor undercut the drama. Others thought it threw away the setup from Episode 7. The fallout. The backlash was loud, especially online. Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose Tycho, faced harassment so intense she left social media. Debate over The Last Jedi raged for years and still hasn't ended. The box office. It still made $1.3 billion, proving Star Wars has a money machine, but it fractured the fan base. Solo, a Star Wars story in 2018. The premise. A prequel story about young Han Solo, directed by Ron Howard after the original directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller were fired mid-production. The reception. Critics found it decent but unremarkable. Fans question if we even needed a Han Solo origin story. The performance. It grossed just $392 million worldwide, low for a Star Wars. Disney had spent nearly $300 million on it due to reshoots. Solo flopped, leading Disney to cancel other anthology films, including a planned Boba Fett movie. The Rise of Skywalker, 2019. The challenge. After the divisive Last Jedi, Disney brought J.J. Abrams back to course correct. The result was chaos. The story. Emperor Palpatine returned from the dead with little explanation. Rey was revealed to be his granddaughter. Finn remained sidelined. The movie raced through plot points at breakneck speed, trying to please everyone and pleasing few. The reception. Critics called it messy, rushed, and contradictory. Fans were split. Some enjoyed the spectacle, others saw it as the weakest Star Wars film. The box office. It earned nearly $1.1 billion, a huge number, but still a drop compared to Force Awakens. By 2019, Disney had released 5 Star Wars films in just 4 years. On paper, this was a gold mine. Collectively, the films made over $5 billion. But something had gone wrong. The sequel trilogy lacked a cohesive plan. Abrams set up mysteries. Johnson subverted them. Abrams retconned Johnson. It felt inconsistent, like 3 different stories stapled together. Fan trust eroded. Some loved the bold choices of The Last Jedi, others hated them. Rise of Skywalker satisfied no one. Disney's strategy of yearly releases led to fatigue. Instead of an event, Star Wars became routine. The Disney era had started strong with nostalgia-fueled hype. But by the end of the trilogy, the magic was fading. Star Wars was still massive, but no longer untouchable. When the sequel trilogy ended with The Rise of Skywalker in 2019, Star Wars was at one of the most divisive points in its entire history. On the surface, the numbers looked good. Billions in box office revenue, mountains of merchandise, and constant headlines. But underneath, the foundation was crumbling. The sequels didn't just disappoint fans, they fractured the fandom, and once again that trust was gone. Disney faced an uphill battle to win people back. The biggest issue wasn't just that some people liked the films and others didn't. It was the depth of the divide. The Force Awakens was safe, but crowd-pleasing. It leaned on nostalgia, which most fans accepted, but it didn't inspire heated debates. The Last Jedi, however, split the community straight down the middle. Some praised it as bold, subversive, and artistically daring. Others said it betrayed everything Star Wars stood for. Luke Skywalker, in particular, became the lightning rod. Was he a brilliant deconstruction of a flawed hero, or a character assassination of a beloved icon? The debates turned vicious online. Social media amplified every argument. Fans weren't just disagreeing, they were at war with each other. And then came The Rise of Skywalker. Instead of healing the divide, it widened it. The film felt like it was trying to undo The Last Jedi, but in doing so, it alienated the fans who liked Johnson's direction and those who disliked it. Suddenly, nobody was happy. The sequel era also exposed the darker side of fandom. Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose Tycho, faced relentless harassment after The Last Jedi. Racist and sexist abuse forced her off social media. John Boyega, who played Finn, later admitted he felt sidelined by Disney and also received targeted hate. Daisy Ridley faced backlash for Rey being seen as a Mary Sue, despite male characters across Star Wars having similar arcs. She too left social media due to the pressure. Even Rian Johnson himself became a target. Some fans still harass him online years later. Star Wars had always inspired passionate debates, but the sequels turned the fandom toxic. It stopped being about discussing story choices and became personal, hateful, and damaging to the people who worked on the films. Beyond the toxicity, what hurt the most was the wasted opportunities. The sequels introduced fascinating ideas, but failed to deliver on them. Finn, a stormtrooper who defects and joins the Resistance. This was fresh, exciting, and full of storytelling potential. But after The Force Awakens, Finn's role shrank dramatically. He became comic relief instead of a revolutionary figure. John Boyega himself later said Disney didn't know what to do with him. Snoke, marketed as the new big bad. Snoke was killed with no backstory in The Last Jedi. Fans spent years speculating about him, only to find out he was essentially a clone experiment. Rey's parentage. The mystery was set up in The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi boldly declared her parents were nobodies. A powerful statement that greatness can come from anywhere. But The Rise of Skywalker backpedaled, making her the granddaughter of Palpatine. It felt forced, contradictory, and robbed her of the unique arc she could have had. In Kylo Ren, one of the strongest elements of the sequels, Adam Driver gave incredible performances, but even his story ended abruptly. The rushed redemption in The Rise of Skywalker lacked the buildup of Vader's arc. The trilogy had no roadmap. Abrams had his vision, Johnson had his. Abrams came back and tried to erase Johnson's. Disney never mapped out the three films as a cohesive story, and it showed. One of the reasons for these issues was Disney's approach. Unlike George Lucas, who crafted the original saga as a unified vision, even with its flaws, Disney treated Star Wars like Marvel. They wanted multiple films, multiple directions, and multiple visions. But Star Wars isn't Marvel. It's a myth, a saga, a generational story. Without a consistent guiding hand, the sequels felt disjointed. Financially, it worked. Culturally, it didn't. The Force Awakens made $2 billion. The Last Jedi dropped to 1.3. The Rise of Skywalker barely crossed $1 billion. Still enormous numbers, but the downward trend was clear. Interest was fading. Perhaps the biggest fallout wasn't the box office, but the loss of faith. Fans no longer trusted Disney to handle Star Wars with care. People felt manipulated by mystery box storytelling that led nowhere. Nostalgia was used as a crutch, with endless callbacks to the original trilogy. Instead of building something new, Disney kept recycling what had already worked. By the end of 2019, many lifelong fans said something shocking. Maybe Star Wars should have ended with Episode 6. Star Wars had always been generational. Parents passed it to kids. The prequels, despite their flaws, inspired a whole new era of fans. But the sequels, instead of uniting generations, they split them apart. Older fans rejected the sequels outright. Younger fans were more accepting, but weren't as passionate. Rey, Finn, and Poe didn't resonate the way Luke, Leia, and Han did. Instead of iconic new characters, the sequels left behind debates and memes. That doesn't mean they're forgotten. You can't erase billion-dollar movies. But their legacy is one of conflict, not inspiration. Disney branded The Rise of Skywalker as the end of the Skywalker saga. But the ending felt hollow. The 9 films spanning over 40 years didn't come together in a satisfying way. Instead of a grand finale, it felt like damage control. And that's the true fallout of the sequels. They didn't just end poorly, they weakened the entire saga. What was once a near universal love became a divided legacy. By 2020, Star Wars was at a crossroads. The sequels had made money, but they had also cost Disney something more valuable, the hearts of its fans. And in the world of Star Wars, that matters more than anything. By the end of 2019, Star Wars was at a crossroads. The sequel trilogy had made billions, but it left the fandom divided and disillusioned. Disney had a problem. People still loved Star Wars, but they didn't trust the movies anymore. The solution? Shift focus to television. Instead of betting everything on billion-dollar theatrical releases, Disney pivoted to Disney Plus, using streaming shows to keep the galaxy alive. This strategy changed Star Wars forever, with mixed results. The Mandalorian, 2019 to the present. The premise? A lone bounty hunter wandering the galaxy after the fall of the Empire. No Skywalkers, no Death Stars. Just a grounded story in the style of an old Western. Grogu, aka Baby Yoda, became an instant cultural icon. Memes, toys, endless merchandise. Baby Yoda alone put Star Wars back in the mainstream. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni focused on practical effects, smaller stories, and episodic adventures. It felt fresh, but familiar. Universally positive at first, fans loved the slower, character-driven approach. The Season 2 finale, which brought Luke Skywalker back in a jaw-dropping cameo, reignited faith in Star Wars for many fans. The Mandalorian proved Star Wars could thrive on television, but later seasons, especially Season 3, faced criticism for pacing issues and too much setup for spin-offs. The Clone Wars, final season in 2020. Fans had begged for years for closure after Cartoon Network canceled the show in 2013. Disney delivered, releasing the final 12 episodes on Disney+. The final arc, Order 66 Through the Eyes of Ahsoka and Rex, is considered some of the best Star Wars storytelling ever. It elevated the prequel era, deepened Anakin's fall, and gave emotional weight to the clones' tragedy. It reminded fans that animation wasn't just for kids. It could tell mature, powerful stories in the Star Wars universe. The Bad Batch, 2021 to present. A squad of genetically modified clones navigating the galaxy after the Clone Wars. It expanded on Order 66's aftermath, explored identity and purpose, and gave fans a deeper look at the Empire's rise. Some found the pacing slow and the filler episodes frustrating. It never captured the mainstream attention like The Mandalorian, but it was beloved by dedicated fans. The Book of Boba Fett, 2021. The premise was simple. Boba Fett takes over Jabba the Hutt's criminal empire. But the reception was disappointing for many. Boba Fett, the mysterious bounty hunter, was reimagined as a reluctant crime lord who rarely acted ruthlessly. The controversy was midway through, the show shifted focus entirely to Din Djarin and Grogu, essentially becoming The Mandalorian Season 2.5. Its legacy is as a missed opportunity that weakened the mystique of an iconic character. Obi-Wan Kenobi 2022. Ewan McGregor returned as Obi-Wan. Hayden Christensen returned as Vader. For fans of the prequels, this was a dream come true. It was set between episodes 3 and 4. Obi-Wan wrestles with his failures to save Anakin while protecting young Leia. The reception was mixed. Some praised the emotional moments, especially the Obi-Wan vs. Vader duel in the finale. Others criticized the pacing, inconsistent visuals, and odd narrative choices, like Leia being kidnapped multiple times. The show had flashes of brilliance, but didn't quite live up to the massive expectations. Andor, 2022. It was a prequel to Rogue One, focused on Cassian Andor, showing the birth of the rebellion. Unlike any other Star Wars project, Andor was grounded, political, and mature. No Jedi, no lightsabers, just people struggling under tyranny. Critics hailed it as some of the best writing in the franchise, calling it Star Wars for adults. The prison arc, the Aldhani heist, and the finale speech became instant classics. While loved by critics and hardcore fans, Andor struggled to reach mainstream audiences. It wasn't memeable like Baby Yoda, and its slower pace wasn't for everyone. But it was proof that Star Wars could still tell bold, layered, and intelligent stories. Ahsoka, 2023. A continuation of Dave Filoni's animated universe, bringing characters from Rebels into live action. Ahsoka searches for Grand Admiral Thrawn while training Sabine Wren. The reception was mixed. Fans of Rebels loved seeing their characters in live action. Casual viewers were lost, with little explanation of backstory. Its legacy will go down as another case of Star Wars leaning heavily on pre-existing lore. Great for hardcore fans, but not accessible enough for new audiences. The Acolyte, 2024. Set during the High Republic, hundreds of years before the Skywalker saga, the idea was to explore the early days of the Sith's rise and a different era of the Jedi. On paper, this was exciting. Finally, a Star Wars could break away from the Skywalkers and give us something fresh. Controversy hit immediately. The show leaned heavily on diversity and modern themes, which some fans celebrated as overdue, while most saw it as overly political. Instead of uniting fans, it sparked fierce debates before it even aired. Then there was the controversy with the lead actress, Amanda Stenberg, who plays the lead, made headlines with a bizarre diss track video aimed at critics of the show. Rather than diffusing the tension, this only fueled the fire. It became a symbol of how fractured the fandom was, with some defending her, others feeling it confirmed that Disney's Star Wars had lost touch with its core audience. The Acolyte represents a bigger problem with Disney's Star Wars strategy. Instead of creating universally beloved stories, they keep producing projects that split the audience. For every Andor or Mandalorian that unites fans, there's an Acolyte that becomes a lightning rod for culture war debates. Disney Plus has kept Star Wars relevant after the sequel fallout. It's given us highs like The Mandalorian and Andor, but also lows like the Book of Boba Fett and controversies like The Acolyte. Some of the highs: Luke's return in Mandalorian Season 2, the Order 66 arc in Clone Wars, and Andor's nuanced writing. Some of the lows: Boba Fett losing his mystique, Obi-Wan's uneven pacing, and the Acolyte making headlines for the wrong reasons. And the trend: nostalgia still dominates. Luke, Ahsoka, Vader, Obi-Wan, they're all back. But when Disney tries to branch out, like The Acolyte, it sparks backlash instead of excitement. Streaming has kept the galaxy alive, but it hasn't solved Star Wars' identity crisis. Unlike Marvel, which has a clear, interconnected plan, Star Wars feels fragmented. Part nostalgia, part experiments, and part controversy. The Disney Plus era proves that Star Wars still matters, but it also shows how fragile the fanbase has become. Every win is celebrated loudly, but every stumble sparks a firestorm. So after all of this, the original trilogy, the divisive prequels, the sequel fallout, and the uneven Disney Plus era, where does Star Wars go from here? What does the future of a galaxy far, far away actually look like? Right now, Star Wars stands at a crossroads. It's still one of the biggest brands in the world, but its future isn't guaranteed. Fans love it, but they're fractured. Disney wants it to thrive, but the missteps of the past decade still loom large. The question is simple: how do you move forward with something this massive, this beloved, and this broken? Disney has multiple films in the pipeline, but after the chaotic sequel trilogy, fans are skeptical. Number 1, James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi. Set thousands of years before the Skywalker saga, this film will explore the origins of the Jedi Order. This could be Star Wars' chance to dive into completely uncharted territory. No Skywalkers, no Death Stars, just brand new mythology. But the risk is huge. Can fans embrace a story that has none of the familiar icons? Number 2, Dave Filoni's crossover film. Tied to The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and the Book of Boba Fett. This will be the Avengers-style team-up for Disney Plus shows, with Grand Admiral Thrawn as the big bad. Hardcore fans are excited, but casuals may be lost if they haven't watched hours of television. Number 3, the new Jedi Order film. Daisy Ridley will return as Rey, rebuilding the Jedi after the rise of Skywalker. For some, this is exciting. Rey deserves better than the messy trilogy she got. For others, it's risky. The sequels left such a sour taste that revisiting them might backfire. Fans are skeptical, though, since the director, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, has made comments such as, "I enjoy making men uncomfortable." This makes many fans wonder if her personal beliefs or politics might end up finding their way into the films. Number 4, Taika Waititi's Star Wars project. Still in development, but vague, Taika has said he wants to create something brand new, not tied to existing characters. Taika's quirky humor could either inject fresh energy or alienate fans if it feels too jokey. And number 5. It had been announced in 2017 that Rian Johnson had a new trilogy, but it seemingly vanished for a long time before finally being announced that it was canceled. Star Wars movies are no longer guaranteed cultural events. After Solo flopped and the sequels divided fans, the brand needs a theatrical comeback that feels truly special. There are still many Disney Plus shows that have recently come out or are still coming. There's Andor Season 2, which so far has garnered decent reception. It's possible The Acolyte might have a Season 2 after cancellation rumors. There's The Skeleton Crew, and likely more Mandalorian content. One of the biggest obstacles for Star Wars is its leadership. Kathleen Kennedy has led Lucasfilms since 2012. She is a legendary producer, Jurassic Park, E.T., Indiana Jones. But under her watch, Star Wars has stumbled greatly. Multiple directors have been hired and fired. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, Colin Trevorrow, Josh Trank. Projects are constantly announced and canceled. Fans are divided on Kennedy. Some blame her for the franchise's lack of direction. What's undeniable is that Lucasfilm has lacked a clear, consistent roadmap. Compare that to Marvel. Kevin Feige mapped out the MCU for over a decade. Star Wars, meanwhile, has been reactive instead of proactive. That's why it feels messy. Another challenge is the fan base itself. Star Wars fans are among the most passionate in the world, but also the most critical. If Disney leans too hard on nostalgia, fans accuse them of being lazy. If they try something new, like The Acolyte or The Last Jedi, fans say they're betraying the spirit of Star Wars. No matter what Disney does, a portion of the fan base will revolt. This makes Star Wars almost impossible to please universally. Unlike the 1970s or 2000s, fandom is now amplified online, where every creative decision is dissected and weaponized in culture wars. It's not all doom and gloom. Star Wars still has massive opportunities. Old Republic stories. Fans have begged for this for decades. Knights of the Old Republic remains one of the most beloved video games ever. Disney has barely touched this era, which means it's ripe for exploration. Or smaller, riskier projects. Andor proved that Star Wars can shine when it takes risks and tells human, grounded stories. More projects like this could win back critical respect. Use animation as a strength. From Clone Wars to Rebels to Visions, animation has consistently delivered some of the best Star Wars content. Leaning into this could keep the brand fresh and rebuild the Jedi mythos. If Rey's film is handled well, it could finally give fans the post-Skywalker era they've wanted, a chance to see the Jedi reborn in a way that feels earned. The truth is, Star Wars' future depends on one thing. Can Disney find the heart of Star Wars again? Because Star Wars isn't just about lightsabers and space battles. It's about hope. It's about ordinary people rising against impossible odds. It's about myth, legacy, and redemption. If Disney chases trends and nostalgia forever, the franchise will limp along, profitable but hollow. But if they can rediscover what made it magical in the first place, Star Wars could rise again, not just as a brand, but as a saga that inspires generations. Right now, the galaxy far, far away feels more uncertain than ever. But maybe, just maybe, that uncertainty means there's still room for hope. Star Wars has been with us for nearly half a century. It began as a simple idea, a space fairy tale inspired by old samurai films and serial adventures, and it became one of the most important cultural touchstones in modern history. It gave us the hero's journey in Luke Skywalker, the redemption of Darth Vader, the tragedy of Anakin, and the enduring fight between light and dark. It changed filmmaking forever, pioneered technology, and united people across generations. There's never been anything like it. But Star Wars has also struggled. The prequels were ambitious but divisive. The sequels were profitable but fractured the fan base. Disney Plus has kept the galaxy alive, but it hasn't solved the bigger question: what is Star Wars supposed to be now? Today, Star Wars exists in a strange place. It's everywhere, on streaming, in theaters, in video games, in theme parks. Yet it's also fragile. Every project is met with both excitement and skepticism. Every creative choice sparks endless debate. The Force may still be strong, but the unity it once had has been lost. And yet, maybe that's fitting, because Star Wars has always been about struggle, about hope when things feel darkest, about redemption, not perfection. Maybe Star Wars doesn't need to be flawless to matter. Maybe what keeps it alive isn't billion-dollar box offices or flawless fan service. Maybe it's the simple truth that people still care. Decades later, fans still debate, still argue, still show up, still pass these stories down to their kids. That's what makes Star Wars eternal. It's messy, it's flawed, it's controversial, but it endures. So where does the galaxy far, far away go from here? That's still uncertain. Disney has plans, new shows, new movies. Some will succeed, others may fail. But the real future of Star Wars doesn't belong to corporations. It belongs to the fans, to the people who see themselves in a scrappy farm boy, a rebellious princess, a fallen Jedi, or even a masked villain seeking redemption. Star Wars is bigger than any one trilogy, any one director, or any one era. It's a modern myth, and myths don't die. They evolve, they change, they spark debate, but they never fade away. The story of Star Wars is a story of light and dark, of failure and redemption, of hope against all odds. And maybe, just maybe, that's why we'll never stop talking about it. So I leave you with this. Star Wars isn't perfect. It may never be perfect again, but it still matters. It still inspires. And as long as we keep looking to the stars, a part of us will always hear those words that began it all, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And may the Force be with you, always.